Friends, in just a few moments, we are going to begin the service for Mr. Melvin Potash. On behalf of the family, I want to thank everybody for joining us here and also through the live stream. Just be a few moments. At this time, if you could take an opportunity to put your phone or any noise-making device on silent, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I begin our service with the reading of several psalms that are read at the service of a good and just person, as was Mr. Melvin Potash. Psalm 1. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach bi'atzat risha'im uvderech hata'im lo amad uvmoshav leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torat Adonai chavtso uvtorato yege yomam v'layla v'haya ke'et shatul al palgei mayim asher piryo yitain be'ito v'alehu lo yibol v'chol asher ya'aseh yatzliach lo chen harisha'im ki im kamotz asher tidefenu ruach al ken lo yakumu risha'im ba'mishpat v'chata'im ba'adat tzadikim Ki odeh Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rashaim toved. Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night. And he will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaves will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. Psalm 15. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai mi yagur bi ohalecha, mi yishkon behar kodshacha. Holech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo lo ragal al lishono lo asa l're'ehu ra'a v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo nivze be'enav nimas v'et yirei Adonai yichabed nishpa lihara v'lo yamir kaspo lo natan b'neshach v'shochad al naki lo lakach osei ela lo yimot le'olam. Mizmor leDavid, a song of David. Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain, one who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from the heart, who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor casts disgrace toward a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully even to personal hurt and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest, nor takes a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. Now going to read Tehillim Chaf Gimel, Psalm 23, first in the Hebrew, and then invite everybody who wishes to join in reading the English, which you will see in the inside of the pamphlet that you are holding. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bin odesha yarbitzeni al me menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara, ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yinachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, Achtov v'chesed yirtefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shafti b'veit Adonai li orach yamim.
Please rise. I've never done that. Thank you. Friends, you may be seated. We'll now begin the service of Mr. Melvin Potash. Officiating today's service will be Rabbi James Gordon and Rabbi Daniel Fox.
And we'll continue now with Psalm 23. If you'd like to join with me in the English, you'll find it in the inside of the pamphlet, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It is quite a tribute, and perhaps really the greatest legacy that one can have is when his children and grandchildren are comfortable really to come up and speak and give tribute to their father and grandfather. And before I speak, which is going to be in a little while, we're going to hear memories and words of Shavach, words of tribute to Mel, given by different members of the family. First, we'd like to call upon his grandson, Max Potash.
There's a lot of people here. All right, hello everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Max Potash. I am named after my grandfather's father, eldest grandson, and proud third-generation grocer at Potash Markets. Luckily, I got the day off today. Grandfather definitely would not approve the missing work, even for his own funeral. I asked some of my siblings if they wanted to add anything today to what I'd be speaking about, and I was amazed that my sister Hannah responded with the one memory that I wrote the speech about. And she also asked me to add how much fun we had crushing cans in the garage at my grandparents' house when we used to go over there. It's something so stupid to get excited about, but that's the effect my grandfather had on all of us. He made everything fun, and we wanted to do literally everything with him. I'm going to try and keep this brief. If I speak for more than a few minutes, I fear we may all drown in my tears. And of course, I'm saddened by the passing of my grandfather. But one thing I've learned in life is that sadness stems from love, and love always feels good. And the amount of sadness we feel is nearly equivalent to the amount of love that we shared. My grandfather and his relationship with my grandmother has been the biggest inspiration of my life. Every day I wake up and I only can hope to make them proud and to accomplish half of what they have in their lifetime. I wanted to take some time today to let everyone in on a secret that my grandfather used to tell me and tell my siblings. And honestly, it's not something that should be a secret, but if more people heard this secret, the world would be a better place. And he would always get down real close to our ear and he'd whisper, "I love you." And it's a secret that I craved hearing, and I could never get enough of the secret, no matter how many times he told us. And imagine just if everyone everywhere had the opportunity to hear this secret that my grandfather shared with us. It's something extremely powerful that, especially to an impressionable child, can shape their whole world as it shaped mine. And anyone who knows anything about the Potash family knows the love that we have for each other knows no bounds and is everlasting. And at least in my lifetime, I truly believe that this all stems from the tone that my grandmother and my grandfather set for the rest of us and given us the opportunity to pass it on to the next generation. I don't know where I'd be in life if I wasn't blessed with the amazing family we have and the feeling of security of the love that we have for each other. Even if we don't physically see each other often, or speak often, or text, or call, we can always live comfortably knowing the love that we feel for each other. It's become very difficult to live in the world today, in such a polarized world where everything is black and white, red or blue, I'm right, you're wrong. And I've come to learn that these things are mostly inconsequential in daily life. And the things that truly matter are the things that you can't touch or you can't see, but the things that you can feel. If we could all focus a little less on the things we may not agree on and live a more empathetic life where we're truly caring for one another, it would benefit the world immensely. Love is the intangible thing, the intangible feeling that we all crave, and the reason behind all of our success, and the reason why we choose to live life every day. I've always admired my grandfather for always acting out of love, rather than pretty useless feelings such as anger, fear, or jealousy. No matter where you stand on any particular topic, that's the way you were treated by my grandfather. The love he shared with me, while physically my grandfather is no longer here with us, it's amazing, I almost don't feel any different. The love he shared with me grows stronger each and every day, and I use every opportunity I can to share that love with others. And if we can all take this secret that my grandfather would tell me and choose our actions based off of love, we can leave the world a better place than we came into, as my grandfather has. Thank you.
I'd like now to call upon granddaughters and sisters Alise Gold and Sarah Chapman.
I first just want to echo what Max and Hannah just shared, that memory of crushing cans with our grandfather. That was, we loved that. So thanks.
I didn't even remember until you mentioned it. And then immediately
So that was,
image in my head.
we'll be sharing some of our own memories and some memories on behalf of our sister Hallie, who was unable to be here today. For as long as I can remember, my grandpa has been a huge part of my life. As you've already heard, and you will hear more, he was not a loud person, but everyone who came in contact with him felt like they knew him. We all felt so loved and supported by him, and we always knew that we could depend on him. Something that stands out in my mind was that when I was in high school, my friend and I asked him if Potash Brothers could be the official sponsor of our softball team. He didn't hesitate. He was more than happy to support our team, which I'm pretty sure meant helping us raise money to buy uniforms, and that was the extent of the softball team. He was a true example of someone who was both hardworking and present for his family. The love and dedication that he had for my grandmother and his children and his entire family is something that I will always strive to emulate.
I'm going to share some words from Hallie, and then I'm going to say something at the end. This is Hallie's words. For those of you who knew my grandpa well, you know that he had a very special presence. He was rarely loud or dramatic, but somehow, in his quiet, steady way, he was able to fill any space with warmth, humor, and kindness. Grandpa lived with total integrity and commitment to the values he espoused. He was a consummate example of practice what you preach. He had a number of sayings he was fond of repeating, such as, go where you're going or look where you're going, something I find a lot of truth in, both literally and figuratively, and it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. He believed in honesty, fairness, and hard work, values he practiced daily at Potash Market. I am so grateful that Grandpa was able to leave this world while in the comfort of his own home and near the love of his life, Grandma. I will miss so many things about him, but mostly I will miss his presence, just being able to sit with him, see him smile, hear his advice, and feel his loving support. I so wish I could be with you all today and have the opportunity to hear from all the people I know my grandpa impacted in his life. I am so grateful to be his granddaughter and to have been able to spend the last 30 years learning from him about how to move through the world with a sense of humor, a strength of character, a generosity of spirit, and a kindness and love for others that seemed limitless. I just wanted to add, and I didn't write this down, so however it comes out, but I shared, so two things. So I shared with my friend just some simple things about Grandpa, that he was the sweetest, most calmest man, and he always had a sense of humor about everything, which is something I really, really value. The ability to brighten people's lives and just this, such a quick wit. He just always had a joke. But just I never saw him ever get angry. So these are certain qualities I just shared with her, and she said, wow, I wish that someone would say that about me at the end of my life, that I never ever saw him get angry. I can't even imagine seeing him frustrated or angry. He just was always so calm. And that's something that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. It will always serve as a role model, an example for me. And I just wanted to share. I remember I just shared with my mom. This is just a little joke I remember I wanted to share, since he really would always have a joke on his lips. And it's something that I remember like imprinting in my mind, like this might be, he was getting a little weaker, and it was something I wanted to remember. It might have been, I realized it might have been the last joke I would hear from him. And my mom was saying goodbye to him and, telling him, I hope to see you at 8:00. And it was clearly for a nighttime event. And he goes, super quick, AM or PM? It was just like right, and just with such a sweet smile, like always just the sweetest smile. And I'll always take those qualities with me. And we'll miss him so much.
Like to call upon Ed.
I cannot begin to say everything about my father, Melvin Potash. He was a businessman, a father, a son, and a friend. My dad's life centered around family and business. His business was a family business. His business went by many names: Potash Brothers, then Northgate Liquors, then Sandberg Supermart, then Potash Brothers again, and finally Potash Markets. Dad loved the business. I think it was easier for Dad to die than to retire from the business. Dad was lucky to have two great partners in the business, Uncle Herbie and Uncle Dave. Uncle Herbie got him started in the business, giving him great advice. Uncle Dave was his closest partner for decades. Dad remarked how much he owed Uncle Dave for giving so much and for asking so little. You might have called Dad a workaholic, except that his work, running the supermart, centered around the people he worked with and for, people like my uncles Herbie and Dave Potash, as well as just about every Potash sister in the family. Dad never lost sight of the fact that he was part of a greater whole. His father, Max Potash, fell on demanding times early in Dad's life. As a good son, my father sold newspapers to keep the family afloat. Dad also helped his employees, giving them loans and selling them his old cars at a discount. He was the embodiment of the old maxim, the customer is always right. Dad's number one goal was customer service. He believed that the customer should be the number one priority of the business. As a father, he was always giving us sincere, if not always welcome, advice. He found time to take us bowling every Tuesday. He also took his family on trips to such far-flung places as Benton Harbor, Michigan, Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin Dells. There are many more things I could say about my father, but I think it's best for us to remember those great stories about him and to keep telling them to each other. Rest in peace, Dad. You've gone to that great grocery store in the sky.
I'd like to call upon Pam. And Mark.
Hi, welcome. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to speak for Mark and I. I hadn't written anything to say. I was just going to read what Mark had written. But when I read what he had written, it reminded me of something that Dad had told me many years ago, and it just kind of melds together how the family worked. Dad once thanked me for allowing Mark to work so much. He knew very well the sacrifice and dedication it took to be successful and provide for a family. But he also knew how difficult it was to raise 4 children without a spouse by your side for a lot of the time. I am so grateful to Dad and Mom because they always helped in many different ways, watching the kids, helping out with things that I couldn't do on my own without Mark there. And I will always be grateful. He understood, the sacrifice, and I appreciated that, because sometimes you feel bad, because you are alone a lot. But it made me appreciate more, that I should appreciate my spouse more, because he was helping, provide for our family. And so I will always be grateful for that one time, that conversation. And it was reiterated many, many times through the years in many varying forms. And I just so grateful, and I'm just I just see a picture of him smiling. I never saw him not smile. I wouldn't know what that face looked like, and it was contagious. You could come in and just have all these, frustrations, and you look at Dad and you see that bright smile, and everything would change. So now I'm going to read something that Mark had put together. 12 hours after my father passed away, I honored him the best way I know how. I worked. I wrote a column on the Bears and dedicated it to him. And then I went back to my family, helped Pam get her car fixed, walked the dogs with Olivia, talked to Max and Blake about their grandfather, and helped the rest of our family arrange for his funeral. My father was about a dedication to work, but as much as a dedication to family. He loved his job, but loved us all. You sometimes hear about children of workaholics who regret they never had a real relationship with their father. I never ever felt that way about my dad. He worked a lot, and he was there for us whenever we needed him. That's a great dad. I was the first son to not go into the grocery business, yet my dad couldn't have been more supportive from the beginning in helping me achieve my goal of becoming a sports writer. My dad was a generous father who I always liked to think spoiled us without spoiling us. When we were in high school, he said he would buy us a car when we graduated college. But when I entered journalism school, my junior year at Missouri, my first beat was to cover the Kansas City Chiefs, which required me to drive 125 miles to Kansas City at least 8 times, which meant I needed a car then, not when I graduated. When I told my dad my plan was to buy a used car, he asked me how much I planned to spend. About $1,500, I said. My dad had a great disdain for used cars and said he would take the $1,500 and buy me a new car. Then in 2 years when I graduated, he would trade the car in for another new car. I recognized the sweetest of deals when I saw and gladly accepted. My dad did everything to facilitate my career. While I was covering the NBA Finals in Miami and Dallas in 2011, Blake was graduating from high school, and I couldn't miss that event, not even for the NBA Finals. When I told my dad about the scheduling predicament, he offered to pay my airfare back to Chicago so that I could cover Game 2 in Miami, attend Blake's graduation, then fly to Dallas for Game 3 that Sunday night. And that's what I did. That's how much it meant to my dad that I didn't miss a chance to cover a big event and, most importantly, do my job. That's the kind of father my dad was. As I said in my dedication in the Sun-Times, my dad was my biggest fan. And then this is what Mark wrote. A personal note. This edition of First and 10 is dedicated to my father, Melvin Potash, who died Monday night at 92. A loyal Chicago Sun-Times subscriber, virtually from the inception of the paper. My dad was my biggest fan, instilled in me a work ethic that has been invaluable. I have no greater satisfaction in my career than making my dad proud, and he will always be a part of everything I write and everything I do. He was the best. I couldn't ask for a better father. Thank you all for coming.
Art?
Thank you all for coming. This is the dad from your children. You loved us with all your heart, and you showed it in every possible way. You engaged us with your teachings and your humor. You helped us when we fell down. You taught us how to ride our bikes. You taught us how to drive, giving us new levels of independence. You supported us in everything we pursued. You were always teaching us. You were teaching us honesty, loyalty, compassion for others, right from wrong, even when it hurt. As an example of when it hurt, I worked at Dominic's when I turned 16 years old. My parents would pick me up at 10 p.m. when I got off work, which meant my dad worked a full day, and still, in pursuit of helping me, he and my mom would pick me up at 10 p.m. I got in the car, and they were driving me home. It was a short drive. I was bragging to my parents that I'd finagled some time off by lying to my supervisor and thought my dad would be proud of me for working the system to get my way. Boy, was I wrong. My dad let me have it. I argued with him from the back seat of the car, and I said, "You're supposed to be on my side." He replied, "I am on your side. That's why I have to tell you when you're wrong, so you'll learn. You'll learn the difference between right and wrong." I never forgot that lesson. It served me my whole life. You cheered us on. Thanks, Dad, for all you did for us and for all those whose lives you touched. We are blessed in more ways than words can say.
Debbie?
These words also come from all of us kids, based on our conversations over the past few days. Dad, how fortunate we are to have grown up with you as our father. You and Mom were a team. In fact, teamwork was one of your ongoing themes. You told us the story of the two horses, both hitched to the same wagon. In your version, to make it more relatable for us, one horse wanted to go to Kim's drugstore in our neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, and the other one wanted to go to the JCC, which was in the opposite direction. Both horses struggled, each wanting to go its own way, preventing both from making any progress until they finally were convinced to go first in one direction and then the other. Throughout our childhood, the two horses became a catchphrase that you would repeat whenever we found ourselves unable to resolve differences. You taught us about the importance of getting along with others, giving the benefit of the doubt, being careful of others' feelings, and not gossiping. You like to repeat what Uncle Herbie used to say, "Words not said will not spread." You taught us these Torah values as a natural extension of who you were, kind and supportive, a voice of reason and encouragement, as Mom has said. You were someone who others looked to for advice, including us, your children. You had a common sense that was uncommon and went out of your way to help those in need. Art told the story of the cousin of a friend. She was robbed outside of our family store, Potash Brothers Supermart, 35 years ago. You did not know her, but saw that she was in distress and rushed to help her, including facilitating a call to her parents back in pre-cell phone days. 35 years later, the gratitude for that act of kindness is still fresh. This is only one example among many that illustrates your kind heart and willingness to act in a time of need. Dad, you were so much fun, like Max talks about, in just the little things. When we resisted bedtime, you made a game out of it, carrying us to bed on your back, your shoulders, or in your arms. Our choice. It was a big deal. We always looked forward to this game, even if we didn't look forward to bed. We had a family tradition to wake up the birthday child singing happy birthday. In fact, birthday or not, you could usually be heard singing as you got ready for the day. And your sense of humor colored our world. You always looked for the lighter side in everyday situations. Mom always says that her father developed his sense of humor once you came into the family. Thank you, Dad, for the gift of you, for your happy nature, always starting the day with a smile, and for sharing it with us.
David? Yeah.
We appreciate your indulgence. A lot of people say, but I think I'm the last. I also wanted to give homage to Nina Gordon, who was Dad's caregiver the last 2.5 years and really became part of the family and really kept him alive and vital these last couple of years, who are enduring, thanks to Nina. My father-in-law and I had in common a profound love for his eldest child, his favorite daughter, my wife Debbie. He instilled in her tremendous midot of always being honest in business and in family members, and his countless lessons and axioms are now being passed on to 2 more generations. I remember one typical cold January Shabbat 36 years ago, walking a couple miles to his grocery store in Clark to ask for his permission to marry his beautiful daughter, and the warm reception he greeted me with. And despite not being a Cubs fan, he agreed that I could enter the family. And what a wonderful family it is. He was a longtime Cubs season ticket holder, but every spring he would call me and give me first dibs on the Cubs versus White Sox games. People who didn't know him thought he was very quiet and unassuming, but on Clark Street, he was a big deal. He was on a first-name basis with Jesse White, Alderman Bert Nateris, Arthur Rubloff, and many other Chicago legends. But also his hundreds and hundreds of regular customers knew him by his first name. He lived a good, full life. May his memory continue to be for a blessing.
We've all been treated now to, I just counted 9 personal perspectives on the life that Mel, Alava Shalom, lived. And when I meet with the family, in this case the night before, I tried to take copious notes and listen very carefully, but I tell everybody that I'll speak last for 2 reasons. One is I don't want anybody to hold back from sharing, feeling that I'll preempt them. And also, if anybody's going to be repetitive, it'll be me. But I hope now, even though I've written out something in an extensive outline, not to be repetitive, but rather to hopefully enhance what has already been spoken. Really, we have a picture of a quite an extraordinary man who led a long and fulfilling life. There is a story in the Talmud, in Masechet Brachot, in the Tractate of Brachot, of a friendship of 2 great scholars, one whose name was Rabbi Eliezer and the other Rabbi Yochanan. In addition to their levels of scholarship, we learn about Rabbi Eliezer that he was a man of modest means, that he lived in a small one-room type of apartment home that did not have any windows and hence was very dark. Rabbi Yochanan is given the description in Aramaic of Shufra. Shufra, like the woman's name, Shifra, means beautiful. And he was given this name, this nickname, because he was a tall, handsome man. One day when Rabbi Eliezer really was in the end stages of his life, Rabbi Yochanan went to visit him, and he noticed when he walked in, of course, that it was dark, and he couldn't really see. So he bared his arm, and the Talmud tells us that the room became illuminated, and he noticed that his friend Rabbi Eliezer was crying. And he asked a simple question, Amai kabachit, why are you crying? Not out of curiosity, but wanting to bring comfort to his friend. And when Rabbi Eliezer was not forthright in sharing the reason, he began exploring, asking pointed questions, each time knowing that it was not logical reason why he should be crying, and he was met by silence. So he started his inquiry, and he said, Imi Shum, is it because of Torah that you feel that you did not learn enough during the course of your life? And he knew that didn't make any sense, and he was met with silence. So he continued, and he said, is it because of Mizonai? Is it because of Parnasa? Do you feel that you did not support your family at the level that you have wished to have done? Was not a logical reason for him to be crying. Then he explored one more time, and he said, Mishum Bana, is it because you feel you did not have enough children? And he did have children. Finally, Rabbi Eliezer, he broke his silence, and he said, Lahai Shufra debale bi'afra kabachina. I am crying because I know that someday this Shufra, this beautiful man, referring to Rabbi Yochanan, I know that sometime he, meaning you, Rabbi Yochanan, will pass away, and you will be lying in the earth. And Rabbi Yochanan responded, Al Davida kabachit. This makes sense. That is the reason that you are crying. And this passage then tells us, Ubachu Tarvayu, and these two great giants in Jewish scholarship, they wept together. We learn different lessons from this passage. One is that we are reminded that we are all mortals. Nobody lives forever. We are all made of flesh and blood. But we are also reminded that even shufraut, even beautiful people, must pass away at some time. And as we've heard really from all of our 9 family members who spoke, and anybody who knew Mel, that he was a shufra. He was a beautiful person. And also, like Rabbi Yochanan, he brought great light into the lives of everyone with whom he came into contact. Common theme, really, that really ties what all of you said so beautifully in great detail. As mentioned, his first primary and priority in life was his family, and he was the son, the 8th of 9 children of Max Mayer and Sarah. Ed, I believe, spoke about the hard times during which he was raised, and he came out strong because of that, and the family became very connected and very cohesive, perhaps because of the challenges that they all experienced. Even though Mel was the 8th in line of the 9 children, he was highly regarded and respected by all of his siblings and looked at almost as like the elder of the family, where they sought his advice throughout their lifetimes. Mel was predeceased by his brother-in-law, Alan Schuman, his sister Ida and her husband Melvin, his sister Ruth and her husband Joseph, his brother and dear friend and business partner Herb, and his sister Frances, her husband Harold, his brother Nathan, and his sister Mildred and her husband George, and then his brother Dave, who was also a business partner and a close friend, and his wife Frieda, and also his sister Elizabeth and Marvin Legator. He is survived by his sister Marian Schuman and sister-in-law Dorothy, and also by by Phyllis's brother Paul and his sister-in-law, his wife Judy, with whom he also shared a close relationship. As discussed, really, the focus was his family, and his life partner was his dear wife Phyllis, and they were married for almost 68 years, having met really through a mutual friend, and not really not set up to meet each other and to go out. But right away there was chemistry and electricity between the two, as Phyllis described. And Mel looked at Phyllis and he saw her freckles and he said, "These, you know what these are? These are kisses from angels." And this is their first encounter, which led, of course, to not just marriage and not just to raising a beautiful family, but to have a partnership with each other. The first woman created in the Torah was Eve, and she was described as an Ezer Kenegdo, which can be defined really as a partner, a life partner. And like the world's first couple, Melvin and Phyllis were each other's Ezer Kenegdo, their life partners. And together, they in their own way built a Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael, a Jewish home, one filled with so many Jewish values, as really has been discussed and brought up by all of the children and grandchildren who spoke. Mel was a loving and devoted father of Debbie, Dr. David Dobkin, Mark and his wife Pam, Art and his wife Arla, and Ed. After returning from military service during the Korean War, Melvin had to earn a living. He didn't have time really to go to higher education at that point, and so he started working for Herbie in the grocery business, soon becoming a partner. And we've heard really of all the successes that the Potashes have had in that business that didn't come by luck, but rather by the hard work and the cohesiveness of the family. Not only were three brothers partners, but there was always a job for somebody in the family to make sure that they too could be supported as well in terms of their own independence. But yet, as we've heard from everybody, just because he was a workaholic didn't mean that he could not be there for his family, as he was, as heard from by everybody, a very visible and important presence in their lives as children, and then as adults, and then in the lives of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren too. In my own notes, I came up with 8 different values that everybody learned from him, and really you've heard most of them, if not all of them as well, but I think I will mention one that may not have been directly tagged, and that is the lesson of having seichel, and that is common sense. While we put a premium many times in book intellect and book knowledge, there was an importance that he saw in common sense, in making sure that he was an everyday type of person and able to really understand others, to make important decisions, and also to advise people as well. And in Hebrew, we have a term acharai, which means after me, and that's really a motto of the Israeli Armed Forces, that the soldier is led by a captain who goes into battle, not standing from an ivory tower giving orders. And Mel, as we learned from all, he taught all of these values by his personal example, not just by preaching, but more importantly, by practicing. Not also pointed out his love of sports and the Cubs, but that he also was a basketball star. And I'm using the word star because he made his basketball team and was also named as one of their captains. As pointed out really by, I believe it was Ed, that he did not earn really becoming a captain necessarily because he was the star player on the team, but he was the star cheerleader of the squad, motivator and leader, as really he saw off the court throughout his life as well, in leading his business and leading his family to really championship levels. Mel, as we heard from his grandchildren, he was a doting grandfather and later was blessed with great-grandchildren for the last 10 years of his life. And we heard from Max and from Hallie by reading, and Sarah, and also Alise, and as representatives of all of the grandchildren, in how much an important impact he had on all their lives. He's remembered as grandpa and remembered with an abundance of love by all of his grandchildren, by Alise and her husband, Rabbi Yoni Gold, Sarah and her husband, Rabbi Jonny Chapman, Hallie and her husband, Dr. Avi Geller, and his grandson, Avi, his granddaughter, Hannah, and her husband, Corey, his grandson, Max, who I know carries on the name of the business to a third generation, his granddaughter, Blake, and his granddaughter, Olivia, who all have these special memories and all had this independent relationship with their grandfather, and God willing, for many more years with their grandmother too. Mel was blessed to enjoy his 12 great-grandchildren, Ayelet, Eli, Nachi, Hadassah, Moshe, Akiva, Noam, Aharon, Tzipora, Josephine, Gitty, and Noah. There's the old saying, what comes around goes around, or what goes around comes around. And just as Mel took great care of his family when he became sick the last few years, the children and grandchildren came together as a team, working together to assist Phyllis in overseeing the care, the loving and quality care that he received. And I know that David acknowledged the role of the caregiver, Mrs. Nina Gordon, who's here, who really provided just loving and quality care to him. And they shared with me that at the end of the day, when Nina would leave, Mel would tell Nina, don't forget to come back because you are important. So that, again, is another sign of who Mel was and the love and kindness that he showed, and gratitude as well. It was noted that not only did he show this love to his own family and inner circle, but how his love, and like Rabbi Yochanan, brought light to others, this light that he brought to so many others, most notably really through his professional life in his business, that he wasn't there just to make money and provide generously for his family, but every employee was viewed by him as an asset, and also in certain ways as an opportunity for him to impact positively upon their lives. It was pointed out to me that he saw the potential in everybody, including his employees, wanting really to better him. It hurt him nothing more. He never wanted to terminate an employee unless he had to do so. But if the employee was sincere but just wasn't doing their job so well, somehow he looked at their skill set and was able then to match them to a job that would be more appropriate for them as well. As noted by the children, especially really Mark, how supportive he was of all of his children, whether it be in their career choices or their life choices, etc. While I personally got to meet Mel and Phyllis, it is largely through my connection and my great friendship for Dr. David and for Debbie Dobkin as well. And I know that just by the times I saw your father and spoke with him, how proud he was of you and your choice to choose a traditional Jewish way of life, and the support that he gave to all of both of you and your children and grandchildren, and how Mel and Debbie were really vital members of the Darchei Noam community of Glenbrook, a shul, a synagogue that David and Debbie were founders of, along with others, and how they were, throughout your time there in that community, vital members of that community as well. Just want to share in closing another text, this time from a more modern period, that is right before Israel, the establishment of the state of Israel. The poet, the writer, Chaim Nachman Bialik, the New Jeopardy hostess, says that this is a great, I think, uncle of hers, Chaim Nachman Bialik. And he wrote the poem that is called Acharei Moti, which means after my death. And I'm going to share the refrain. Acharei Moti siptu kach ali. After my death, after I pass away, I want you to eulogize me in the following manner. Haya ish ur'u. There was a man, and behold, einenu od. He is no longer here with us. Kodem zmano meta ish hazeh. Before his time, this man has passed away. V'shirat chayav be'emtza nifsaka. And the song of his life was abruptly stopped in its midst. Vitzar, like the word tsuris, oi, woe, od mizmor echad hayalo. He still had another song inside of him. V'hinei avad hamizmor la'ad, avad la'ad. And behold, this song is lost forever, lost forever. In order to help ensure that Mel's song, that is his legacy, lives on and on, it is important that we all dedicate ourselves to incorporate in our own lives the many fine, wonderful midot, character traits, by which Mel lived his life. Tehei nishmat Meir ben Mendel HaKohen Tzura B'Tzura Chaim. May the neshama, the soul of Melvin Potash, the son of Max and Sarah Potash, be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. It's now my honor to call upon Rabbi Daniel Fox, the rabbi of Darchei Noam of Glenbrook, to recite the memorial Kel Maleh prayer. If you would all please rise. Do you have the name? Did you?
Thank you. Yes. Okay. If I may, can I share a very brief thought? You can stay standing. This will be very quick. Make it around 10 or 11, I guess, with Rabbi Gordon. The prayer that I'm going to recite momentarily begins with the words, El Maleh Rachamim, a God full of mercy or compassion or really love. And it's interesting that in this moment of sadness and difficulty and heaviness, we refer to God by his trait of love and mercy and compassion, acknowledging that even if this is not something that we choose, not something that we like to experience, but nonetheless we're aware somewhere deep down that this too, that truly everything comes and emanates from God's feeling of love that he has for every single human being. And if there's one trait that I heard over and over again in all of the beautiful words of memory and tribute, all of the eulogies by Mel's loving children and grandchildren, it is that trait of love that he emulates, God's very trait of unconditional love for his family and for all of us. So I agree with what all of you said, that there is no greater tribute to a person, to a human being, than somebody who truly increased the love and the light in this world. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein B'Meromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'Malos Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Meir ben Mendel HaKohen Shalach Liolamo Bavur Shanachnu Mispalalim Biad Hazkaras Nishmaso Began Eden Tehei Menuchaso Lachein Balarachamim Yastireyu Beseser Kanafav Liolamim Vitzror Bitzror Achayim Es Nishmaso Adonai Hu Nachlaso V'yanuach B'Shalom HaMishkavo V'nomar Amen.
Please be seated.
Mrs. Potash, on behalf of a grateful nation and the President of the United States for your husband's services to our great country, I will now present you the United States flag. Ladies and gentlemen, the services here at the chapel are concluded. For those of you who will be driving to the cemetery, Shalom Memorial Park, for the interment, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing many of the cars with a flag that will be affixed to the top portion of your car, the top of your car. We'll also please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to the cemetery. For information for Shiva at the Dobkin residence at 3275 Old Mill Road in Northbrook, please note the service folder has all the times, the minyanim, and everything that you need. Please note that masks are required at the home. Memorial contributions in his memory to Darchei Noam of Glenbrook, or Hadassah, or your favorite charity. All that information is on the service folder, and for the many people that are joining us online, you could find all that information on our website. The following people have been asked to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, please stand next to Mr. Potash's casket. Max Potash, Avi Dobkin, Corey Krauss, Matthew Weiner, David Weiner, Barry Schuman, and Dr. David Dobkin. The honorary pallbearers are Blake Potash, Rabbi Yoni Gold, Rabbi Jonathan Chapman, Dr. Avi Geller, Dave Scapperdine, Jeff Iwamuro, sorry if I made a mistake, John Robertson, and Wayne Jacobs. At this time, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket of Mr. Melvin Potash along with the clergy and his family from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars.